Mom said. "You're not welcome here with that job." My sister laughed and said, "We don't serve broke people." I smiled and left. 2 weeks later, they showed up crying. I still remember the smell in the air that morning, crisp, cold, and oddly hopeful. I had just finished my first full week working as a garbage collector. It wasn't what I'd envisioned when I pictured my career back in college when things still seemed linear and fair. But I was proud. Genuinely proud. After nearly 2 years of rejection emails, interviews that ended in false hope, and days spent calculating which bill I could delay without consequences, I finally had something solid. Good pay. Real benefits. Union protection. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waking up with that sharp weight in my chest, the kind that comes from wondering if you're one missed rent payment away from losing everything. I wanted to share the good news. Not online, not with friends. No, I wanted to tell my family. My mom and my sister, in particular. Despite everything, some part of me still craved their approval. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd see I was trying to build something from the rubble. I hadn't told them I got the job yet. I wanted to see their faces when I said it aloud, when I showed them I was finally on my feet again. So that Saturday, after my shift, I showered, put on a clean button-down, and drove across town to their place, a sleek, suburban home with the kind of white shutters and rose bushes that Instagram influencers loved. I knocked. My mom answered the door. Her face dropped the moment she saw my neon orange city-issued windbreaker poking out beneath my coat. I opened my mouth, already smiling. "Hey, I've got some news." She cut me off with a look that could stop traffic. "You're not welcome here with that job," she said flatly. I blinked. "What?" She stepped back, not to let me in, but like she couldn't stand the proximity. "You heard me," she said, folding her arms. "Dragging trash through the streets like some low-class drifter? What if the neighbors see?" I felt the heat creep up my neck, but I didn't move. Behind her, my sister Melanie strolled in, glass of wine in one hand, her voice syrupy sweet and razor-sharp. "We don't serve broke people," she said with a smirk. "But if you need a trash bag, we've got plenty. You'd know what to do with those, right?" They both laughed. I didn't. I looked at them for a long second, then gave the only response I could muster. I smiled. A small, slow, honest smile. The kind that didn't need words to say "I see you now." I turned, walked down the front steps, and didn't look back. 2 weeks passed. I heard nothing from them. I didn't reach out. I kept working. Kept showing up before dawn in steel-toed boots, learning the city's rhythms block by block. My arms ached, my fingers cracked from the cold, but I was standing. I was surviving. And for once, that was enough. Until the knock came. It was a rainy Thursday. My shift had ended early. I was in sweatpants, brewing coffee, when someone pounded on my door. I opened it, and there they were. My mother. My sister. Both soaked, shivering, and visibly shaken. "Please," my mom said, voice quivering. "We didn't know where else to go." But I just stood there, one hand on the doorframe, looking at them like they were strangers. Because in that moment they were. They didn't look like the women I had last seen, flushed with judgment, wine glasses in hand, laughing at my expense. Now they looked small. Deflated. Like 2 mannequins someone had left out in the rain. I didn't say anything right away. Just let them stand there on my porch as the wind needled through their coats. My mom's eyes darted past me into the warm glow of my living room. My sister, usually poised like she was ready for a photo op, couldn't meet my gaze. Finally, I stepped aside. "Come in," I said, and my voice was flat, emotionless, but not cruel. They walked in quickly. My mom went straight for the couch like it was owed to her. Melanie hovered near the doorway, arms crossed tightly across her chest. "You're probably wondering why we're here," my mom said. "No," I said quietly, walking into the kitchen to pour another cup of coffee. "I'm guessing it has something to do with the boutique and the charity scam." The color drained from her face. Melanie finally looked up. How did you know?" I leaned on the counter, sipping from my mug. You really think I wouldn't hear about a federal fraud investigation in my own family? The news broke 4 days ago, Mel. Your face was on Channel 9, crying outside that fancy storefront. Melanie crumbled into a kitchen chair, letting out a shaky breath. My mother just sat there stiffly, jaw tight, like she still couldn't believe I knew. Maybe she thought I was too low class to own a TV. The accounts are frozen, she said. They seized everything. The house, the cars, even the trust fund. So you thought I'd be next on your list, I said. Just the garbage man. Always easy to ignore until your trash starts piling up. Don't say it like that, she snapped. We didn't come here for charity. I raised my eyebrows. Then what did you come for? Melanie buried her face in her hands. A place to stay. Just for a little while. Until we figure things out. I looked around my modest home, clean but humble. No art on the walls. No sweeping staircase. Just enough for me to be comfortable. To be free. You want to stay here? I said. After the way you spoke to me? We were wrong. My mom whispered. It was stupid. Arrogant. We were just comfortable? I offered. She nodded slowly. I studied their faces. Not out of vengeance, but because I wanted to know if the cracks were real, or just performance. I didn't see tears. I didn't see regret. I saw desperation. A scramble for footing now that their mountain of lies had crumbled beneath them. And I decided something right then. I would help. But not in the way they expected. I told them they could stay one night. Just one. The look on my sister's face was almost comical, like someone had just offered her a seat in the back row after she'd spent years living on the stage. One night? She repeated, blinking. Yeah, I said. This isn't the Four Seasons, Mel. And you don't get to treat people like they're beneath you and then expect turn-down service when your world collapses. My mother opened her mouth, probably to protest, but I raised a hand. One night. I repeated. And you follow my rules. I laid them out like a landlord preparing an eviction notice. No touching the thermostat. No unapproved guests. Clean up after yourselves. You cook what you eat. You clean what you use. And if either of you opens your mouth to mock what I do for a living, you're out before sunset. Melanie scoffed, but she didn't say anything. Not this time. I think even she could feel how far they'd fallen. My mother gave a faint nod. No pride left. Just necessity. I brought them some clean towels and 2 thin blankets. Melanie gave one a once-over and muttered something under her breath about cheap cotton. I looked her dead in the eye. You're welcome to the curb instead. She went silent. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while I heard them shuffle around in the living room. They were used to marble countertops and imported sheets. Now they were sleeping on a pull-out couch with springs that squeaked every time you breathed wrong. I wondered if it stung. If it finally registered that the man they had once mocked for collecting trash was the only one willing to give them a roof. Maybe not. Maybe entitlement runs too deep for a single cold night to shake it loose. But one thing was clear, this wasn't over. And I wasn't finished. The next morning, I woke early, habit from the job, and found the living room exactly how I expected it, my mother sitting upright on the couch, staring blankly at her phone, and Melanie curled up under a blanket like she was recovering from a war. Coffee's in the kitchen, I said. Mugs are on the second shelf. My mom gave me a tired nod. Melanie didn't move. I made myself a simple breakfast, eggs, toast, black coffee. The kind of meal that had kept me grounded these past few years. When I turned to offer them a plate, Melanie wrinkled her nose. Do you have almond milk? She asked, her voice scratchy but still somehow condescending. I just looked at her. No, I said. I have tap water. And a toaster. You want a hot breakfast, you know where the stove is. She didn't respond, just muttered something and disappeared into the kitchen. By the time I finished eating, the living room was silent again. I took the opportunity to sit down across from them. So, I said, tell me exactly what happened. They hesitated. I could see them trying to decide how much to admit. My mother finally spoke. The boutique. Melanie's boutique. It wasn't doing as well as we said. That I figured. I said. We started moving money around. Melanie added quickly. Tapping into the charity funds. It wasn't a big deal at first. Just to cover payroll, rent, marketing. Then things spiraled. And the charity itself? My mother looked down. It was mostly a front. We thought if we could raise enough attention, enough visibility, the donations would keep us afloat. But someone tipped off the wrong people. I nodded slowly. And now you're broke. Melanie bristled. Temporarily. I leaned back. You called me broke 2 weeks ago. Said I wasn't welcome in your house. Now you're sleeping under my roof and drinking my dollar store coffee. Melanie didn't respond. I pulled out my phone, opened a photo from work. It was from 3 days ago, me and 2 of the guys standing beside a towering wall of bagged trash we'd cleared after a festival. We were grinning, sweaty, proud. I turned the phone to show them. You see that? That's honest work. No lies. No fronts. Just sweat and steel toes. They stared at the image like it was in a foreign language. Later today, I continued, I'm taking a photo of both of you. And you're coming to work with me. Melanie's eyes widened. What? You heard me. Community service isn't just for court orders. You want to stay here? You pull your weight. My mother looked stunned. You expect us to pick up garbage? I smiled. No. I expect you to learn what it feels like to build something back from the bottom. The same way I did. The following morning, I handed them each a pair of gloves, a reflective vest, and a pair of old work boots I'd kept from a donation pile. Melanie looked like I'd asked her to walk into fire. I'm not wearing this, she muttered, turning the vest over in her hands like it might bite her. I didn't flinch. Then you're not staying. My mother, to her credit, didn't argue. She took the gear and started getting ready. Maybe she realized she didn't have many options left. Maybe humiliation had finally worked its way through her pride. Melanie, though, she resisted every second. Complained during the ride. Rolled her eyes during the safety briefing. Acted like she was being sentenced to life in prison just for having to step near a trash bin. But that changed about halfway through the morning. We were on the east side, one of the rougher routes, where the alleys run deep and the dumpsters overflow like nobody's job is to empty them. The kind of place where the air smells like old grease and wet cardboard. It was my daily, and I'd stopped noticing the stink years ago. But Melanie? She gagged. At one point, she dropped a bag too fast, and it split open across her boots. The look on her face. Priceless. Rage, disgust, panic, all rolled into one expression that would have made a great motivational poster if the caption read, "Rock bottom has layers." She didn't say much after that. Just kept her head down, worked in silence. I didn't offer comfort. She'd had plenty of people to catch her when she fell before. This time, the concrete had to do its job. That afternoon, I snapped a photo. The 2 of them, standing beside me and the rest of the crew. Dirty, tired, gloves in hand. I didn't post it to shame them, not yet. I just wanted the reminder. Something to look at in case they ever forgot what humility looked like. Back at the house, they collapsed onto the couch without a word. How do you do this every day? My mother asked quietly. I shrugged. Same way you smiled through your fundraisers. With grit and a reason. Melanie stared at the floor. I could tell something had shifted. Maybe not everything, but enough. Her makeup had smudged from the sweat. Her nails were chipped. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was soft. We judged you, she said. And we were wrong. I didn't nod. Didn't rush to forgive. I just said, yeah, you were. The next few days passed in a strange kind of silence. They stayed in their corners. My mom helped with the dishes without being asked. Melanie didn't complain anymore, but I caught her staring at my bookshelf once, maybe realizing for the first time that I had a life beyond what she imagined in her head. Books on finance, union rights, and even a few dog-eared novels I'd held onto from better days. It was the third night when my mother finally broke. We were sitting in the living room, the TV on low, barely audible. She was nursing a cup of tea like it was some kind of apology, hands trembling just slightly. "I wasn't always like this," she said, staring into the cup. I didn't answer. Let her speak. "I grew up poor. Dirt poor. Thought marrying your father would fix everything. Then he died, and I panicked. Spent years trying to pretend we were still okay. Melanie, she took to the fantasy faster than I could keep up. She looked at me, really looked at me. And you? You were always too quiet. Too steady. I thought that meant you didn't need much from me." I let her words hang in the air. Finally I said, "Needing love and needing money aren't the same thing. You made me feel like needing either was a weakness." Her eyes welled up, but I didn't comfort her. She had to feel it. Not out of cruelty, but because without the sting, she'd never remember. The next morning, Melanie was up before me. She had made coffee, weak, but it was effort. She sat at the table, scrolling through her phone. I expected more calls, more desperate texts. But instead, she was looking at job listings. "Retail, admin, even delivery," she said, not looking up. "Anything. I need to do something." I nodded once. "You do." Later that evening, I posted the photo. Nothing petty. Just the picture of all three of us, me, my mom, Melanie, and the crew, standing by the truck. Captioned simply, "There's dignity in work. You learn that fast when life stops cushioning your falls." I didn't tag anyone. But it got around. By morning, it had been reshared more times than I could count. Former friends of my sister. Donors from my mother's old circles. Everyone saw it. And for the first time, I didn't care who did. The post went viral in the way quiet things sometimes do. No screaming, no hashtags. Just quiet fury from the people who once held them up, now realizing the women they admired were cleaning alleys in borrowed boots. I didn't read all the comments, but I saw enough. "Is that Melanie from Willow and Rye? What happened to her empowerment through elegance talk? Is this the same charity they claimed sent aid to Kenya? My company donated $5,000 last year. Hard to play queen when you're hauling bags." I didn't respond to any of them. I wasn't after humiliation. I wanted truth. Just for once, I wanted people to see the difference between who they pretended to be and what they really stood for. The fallout came fast. A former investor filed a civil complaint against my sister. A local news blog picked up the image and linked it to the investigation. And a private donor who had worked closely with their so-called nonprofit went public with screenshots of forged documents. Their names were suddenly everywhere, but for none of the reasons they wanted. That night, I came home to find Melanie curled up on the floor beside the couch, her phone face down beside her. "They're saying I should be arrested," she whispered. I didn't say anything. My friends, my exes, even my old business partner. They're all posting like they never knew me. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, cracked it open, and took a seat in the armchair. "Now you know how it feels," I said. She looked up. "To be invisible," I clarified. "To give, and when the shine wears off, watch everyone you carried pretend they never needed you." My mom was silent that night. She didn't ask for a blanket. She didn't protest when I reminded her they still had a week to find somewhere else. That was the deal. 7 days of shelter. 7 days of accountability. And then I was reclaiming my peace. The week crawled by with the weight of quiet apologies. Not spoken, never directly, but in the way they moved through my space like guests instead of owners, like they finally understood what it meant to take up room without entitlement. Melanie got a job, part-time, working at a local thrift shop, of all places. I think the irony hit her on day one. She texted me that night with just 2 words. Earned sweat. No emojis. No filters. My mom kept busy scrubbing floors and folding laundry she never would have touched in her own home. One night I found her in the backyard staring up at the stars, whispering something to herself. I didn't interrupt. I didn't need to. She was finally meeting herself without the mirrors she'd spent years polishing. And then the 7th day came. I told them to sit down after dinner. No drama. No judgment. Just a simple conversation between 3 people who finally knew where they stood. You kept your word, I said. And I kept mine. My mother gave a slow nod. We'll go in the morning. A friend of mine from church offered a spare room. Good, I said. I'll help with the bags. Melanie looked like she wanted to say more, maybe ask for a few extra days, but she didn't. Maybe she knew it would ruin what little she'd managed to rebuild. Instead, she slid an envelope across the table. What's this? Half my first paycheck, she said. It's not much, but I owed you something. I didn't touch the envelope. Just looked at her and said, You owed me respect. You're starting to pay that back. Keep the money. You'll need it more than I do. She nodded, eyes stinging, but didn't push. We cleaned up dinner in silence, and when I went to bed that night, I slept the whole way through, for the first time since they'd arrived. They left early the next morning. No tearful farewell. No last-minute speeches. Just 2 women who had learned, finally, that the world didn't owe them applause for doing the bare minimum. My mom packed quietly. Melanie folded the blankets with more care than I expected, placing them gently on the arm of the couch like she didn't want to leave a single mark behind. I helped them load their bags into the back of a borrowed minivan, one of those outdated models with a cracked tail light and an engine that groaned like it had secrets. A fitting ride for their new chapter. Melanie looked at me once, just before getting in. She didn't say thank you. She didn't apologize again. But she looked me in the eye, not down at me, not through me, and that was more honest than anything she'd said in years. My mother climbed in next. She paused in the passenger seat, hand resting on the doorframe. I know I can't undo what we said, she murmured, but I saw who you are this week. And I hope someday you'll see me again too. Not who I was. Who I'm trying to be. I nodded. Not yes. Not no. Just maybe. The van pulled away down the street, tires crunching over gravel. I stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching until they turned the corner and disappeared. And I didn't feel triumph. I felt quiet. The kind of quiet you only get after a storm when the debris is still scattered, but the wind has finally died down.